Carlisle Indian Industrial School from 1879 to 1928 was the nation's first off-reservation school for Native Americans. When people learn about the school, located in southern Pennsylvania, it is probably the image of Indian children from the western states that comes to mind, as many stories have been written of the Indian boarding school experiences of the Lakota, Ojibwe, and other children from western and midwestern tribes. Yet of the over 150 tribes represented at Carlisle, the Mohawks, an eastern tribe which spans the U.S.-Canadian border in upstate New York and which had already been exposed to European-based culture for over 200 years, had the sixth largest population at the school, with over 350 children attending Carlisle during its existence. My husband's Mohawk grandfather was one of the 12 children. Although he was sent to a school in Montana, of his 6 siblings who survived past the age of 5, 2 were sent to a school in Buffalo, New York, and 4 attended Carlisle. The following story is for the thousands of children at Carlisle and other schools who found themselves far away from home. Sarah. Mother. Were it not for Maddie, I would turn around and climb up the iron steps and hide in the seats and hope the train would take me home. Home. If my satchel were not so heavy, I could hold Maddie's hand, but it is filled with the bread and cakes and early apples Father placed in it for the trip. If we had been hungry, we would have eaten and my load would be lighter and I could hold Maddie's hand. But my stomach swirled back and forth all day with the movement of the train, and the strong smell of the smoke filled my head, and I could not eat. Maddie could not eat either, but Maddie never eats as much as I do. Be good, Father said as he watched us board the train. Through the window, clouded in dust and dew, I saw his mouth move, and he waved goodbye, but I heard nothing except for the grating sound of metal against metal as the train began to move forward. I wished he had smiled. I remembered when he used to smile. His figure grew smaller and smaller until just before he almost faded from view, I saw him turn and walk away, toward the wagon that would take him home. And now I want to turn and walk away, run away, back to the train and make it take us home to Akwesasne, and hope my father will be there at the station to take Maddie and me home. But it is just a dream, a hopeless dream, where Maddie and I would be home with our whole family there, all our brothers and sisters, and our father and our mother. Mother. Maddie. You children, a man calls out. Sarah and I stand on the platform, alone in a river of people who rush hurriedly to and from the train. You children from the school? He moves toward us, this man who looks older than Father, this man with hair thick and gray that curls down around his ears. But instead of the sad look my father now wears every day, this man's mouth spreads wide across his face into a smile. Sarah and I nod, but we do not move. Come on now, he says. My feet remain firmly fixed in place on the platform as I watch this man closely. I search my mind for some memory of other men who look like him. I recall no one whose skin is as black as the coal that burns in our kitchen stove. Come on, I ain't got all day, he says quickly, though not unkindly. Where your things be? I nod to the wooden box that sits on the platform beside us, one that holds so little because when we packed for our trip, Father said we would need so little. He said all would be provided for us, even our clothes, which makes no sense because we have our own clothes. But that's what he was told by the lady and the man who came and sat at our kitchen table one summer night. I wish this man as black as coal were not here to take us to the school. I wish it were our father who was finding us at the station, telling us it is time to go home. Father. Take care of your sister, Father said to me as Sarah and I boarded the train for our long journey away from home. Hey, Anne, I answered. Yes, I will take care of my sister. Speak English now, he commanded. They will expect it. I nodded. Promise me. Yes, Father, I will, I assured him. Poor Father. He knows deep in his heart that Sarah and I did not want to leave our home. Father said it would be best for us, best for our family, and that we had to be good. Be good, he said to us, though his eyes looked only at me. Yes, Father, I answered him. It's hard to think in English. Sarah is better than I am at being good, but she stands next to me and does not move. She stares at this man, who is the blackest man we have ever seen. Come, Sarah, I say loudly. I do not want this man to think I am afraid. I won't be afraid. I won't. I hope I can be good. Sarah. Come on now, he says as he sets our box upon the strangest thing on wheels I have ever seen, where several pairs of eyes stare down at us. So many, many strange things. Climb up, he urges, his voice friendly, but so strong that I dare not disobey. Yet my legs will not move, and my feet cling fast to the ground. Even Maddie holds back. Maddie, who is older and braver than I am, Maddie, who is not afraid of anything, stands and stares at this strange contraption, this wooden wagon with no sides, this strange wagon with iron wheels that rest on railroad tracks, just like the train that brought us here. Come on now, he says again, beckoning us with his whole hand. This old herdig won't bite. The herdig gon' take you home. Home? I turn to look at the train behind us, people hurrying about, climbing aboard. The train could take us home. As I turn my head back toward this strange machine on wheels, Maddie is being lifted up by two thick black arms. Come on, Missy. Davis ain't got all day, he says, turning toward me. But before those big black arms swing back for me, I scramble up the wooden boxes placed on the ground as steps beside this strange train wagon and plop quickly down next to Maddie. The black man laughs loudly, and in one step, he too is in the wagon, his hands grabbing hold of a wooden handle. Suddenly, the strange cart jerks, and Maddie and I cling to each other as it starts rolling forward along the tracks. Welcome to Carlisle, the man's voice booms behind us. You children gonna be all right now. You children gonna like this place. This place gonna be your new home. Home? Maddie. The wheels of the cart roll noisily along the tracks, squeaking and squealing. There has been noise everywhere since we left home. Strange noise. Especially people noise. People whose voices are loud and harsh even when they are not angry. Even when my father was stern, even when my mother would scold, their voices were not loud and harsh. Sometimes my mother said we were making too much noise when we ran through the house when we were children playing. Sarah and I make no noise now as we sit next to each other on our way to the school. Sarah. Maddie, I whisper to my sister as we stand side by side on the grass. What? She answers quickly, but not impatiently. Stay with me, I demand. She grips my hand so tightly that if we had been home, I would have thought she was being bossy like she can be sometimes because she thinks she is grown up. Maddie is my older sister, and sometimes she can be mean. I think it is because she is smaller than I am, and she should not be if I am her little sister. She says she does not care, but I think she does. She says she is not small. She says I am big, but that is not true because Hazel Lazor and I are the same age, and I am no taller than Hazel, and Maddie is smaller than Hazel's sister Emma, and Emma and Maddie were born the same year. My sister now holds my hand tightly, but she is not being mean. 15, maybe 20 of us. I did not dare lean forward long enough to count, stand in a long line outside the sunshine in front of the big white building. White as the newest snow in October on the outside, but dark and damp inside, despite the many windows, this big white building where Maddie and I will now sleep. And some of these children who stand beside us are as scary as Mr. Davis, who is the blackest man I've ever seen in my 12 years of being a human being. Mr. Davis, who found us at the train station and brought us to the school with 4 other children who sat and stared at Maddie and me and said nothing, nor we to them. And now these children and Maddie and I and others who appeared from nowhere stand in a line, a strange assortment of dress and hair and sizes, yet all of us as brown as the soil in my father's garden when it has been warmed by the sun. I hold Maddie's hand tightly as, looking to my right, I see an enormous figure full of blackness moving stiffly down the line, stopping and staring at each child. At some she scowls and nods and passes by, but at others she stops and tilts her head and stares, and then thick white fingers reach through the end of the long black sleeve, gripping a shoulder, pulling the child forward. Without a word, she moves the child to the left or right, and then steps back and glances up and down the line and nods and then moves on, coming closer to where Maddie and I stand, holding our breath and hands tightly. I do not want to be moved. Please, please, please do not take me from my sister. When the blackness stops in front of Maddie, I hear my sister suck in her breath, and I let it out through her teeth. But I hold my breath in all together and look down at the dust on my shoes. As I feel Maddie's body being pulled forward, she grips my right hand even more tightly, and my arm lifts upward to move with her. Smack! Her sharpness hits me unexpectedly on the edge of my wrist, and Maddie and I are instantly apart, and the breath I was holding inside explodes. I look up in time to see thick white fingers moving toward Maddie's shoulder, and before I can utter a word of protest, Maddie is snatched forward, and as my eyes fix on the beady black eyes, they turn sharply to return my stare, forcing mine downward once more. And suddenly, Maddie's shoes appear on the other side of me, and I feel the fingers of her right hand pressing strongly into the palm of my left. Will that do? A blur of blackness calls out from the end of the row. Yes, Mrs. Dwyer, a man in a tall black hat answers as he looks into a box sitting on wooden legs. It will do. Now, children, he adds in a loud voice, Let's smile. I wonder if anyone smiled. Maddie. We stand on the grass in front of the large white building where we left our belongings, our only ties with home except each other. Across the yard, a man in a tall black hat stands by himself, peering into a box which sits on tall wooden legs. We had watched him silently as he spread the wooden legs apart and placed his box high on top. Maddie, Sarah whispers. What? I ask. I hear the fear in her voice. I know she is frightened. We stand in a long line with other children, children we do not know, children who do not speak our language, nor we theirs, and if any speak as much English as Sarah and I do, we would not know because no one had spoken to us. Stay with me, she says, looking past me. Her voice shakes slightly, and her hand grips mine so tightly that I glance to my right to determine the cause of her concern. A woman taller than Edna Cook, who is the woman who lives next door to my grandmother's house, appears. This woman, who wears a dress so black that she could disappear into the night when there is no moon, pulls a child forward from the line. And before I can think to wonder where this child is going, she is pushed firmly back into the row, 3 girls away from her former line mate. The mass of black rustles closer. Sarah squeezes my hand as this woman taller than Edna Cook stops in front of me. I draw in a deep breath and stare into the 2 eyes that look like tiny chunks of coal set into a snowbank muddied by a January thaw. When she returns my stare, a cold shiver spreads upon my back, and I momentarily forget it is an early afternoon in late summer. As I lower my stare, my errant eyes focus briefly on a silver pin, or perhaps it is a watch fastened to her dress. Suddenly, soundlessly, my body surges forward, my left hand still clinging tightly to Sarah's right. And then the quiet is broken, and the smack of wood on flesh rings sharply in my ears just seconds before I feel the stinging of my skin, and just seconds before my eyes begin to well with tears. I am already standing next to my sister once more. The fingers of my right hand reach out to assure her we are still together. I press my fingers firmly into the palm of her hand, silently urging her to say nothing, pushing my left wrist hard against the back of my leg to dull the pain. Through my blurry vision, I see the man in the black hat. He waves and calls out to us, but I do not hear what he says because the noise of shame still rings in my ears and his words evaporate into the air.